of a young retriever or a young horse. End of footnotes. As years pass on, the child of the working man learns a great deal from what he sees and hears going on around him, and when we inquire into the advantages for starting in life which children of the well-to-do classes have over those of artisans, and which these in their turn have over the children of unskilled labourers, we shall have to consider these influences of home in more detail. But at present we may pass to consider the more general influences of school education. Little need be said of general education, though the influence even of that on industrial efficiency is greater than it appears. It is true that the children of the working classes must very often leave school when they have but learnt the elements of reading, writing, arithmetic, and drawing, and it is sometimes argued that part of the little time spent on these subjects would be better given to practical work. But the advance made at school is important, not so much on its own account, as for the power of future advance which a school education gives. For a truly liberal general education adapts the mind to use its best faculties in business, and to use business itself as a means of increasing culture, though it does not concern itself with the details of particular trades. That is left for technical education. Footnote. The absence of a careful general education for the children of the working classes has been hardly less detrimental to industrial progress than the narrow range of the old grammar school education of the middle classes. Till recently, indeed, it was the only one by which the average schoolmaster could induce his pupils to use their minds in anything higher than the absorption of knowledge. It was therefore rightly called liberal, because it was the best that was to be had. But it failed in its aim of familiarizing the citizen with the great thoughts of antiquity. It was generally forgotten as soon as school-time was over, and it raised an injurious antagonism between business and culture. Now, however, the advance of knowledge is enabling us to use science and art to supplement the curriculum of the grammar school, and to give to those who can afford it an education that develops their best faculties and starts them on the track of thoughts which will most stimulate the higher activities of their minds in after life. The time spent on learning to spell is almost wasted. If spelling and pronunciation are brought into harmony in the English language, as in most others, about a year will be added to the effective school education without any additional cost. End of footnote. Section 4. Technical education has in like manner raised its aims in recent years. It used to mean little more than imparting that manual dexterity and that elementary knowledge of machinery and processes which an intelligent lad quickly picks up for himself when his work has begun, though if he has learnt it beforehand he can perhaps earn a few shillings more at starting than if he had been quite ignorant. But such so-called education does not develop faculties, it rather hinders them from being developed. A lad who has picked up the knowledge for himself has educated himself by so doing, and he is likely to make better progress in the future than one who has been taught in a school of this old-fashioned kind. Technical education is, however, outgrowing its mistakes, and is aiming, firstly, at giving a general command over the use of eyes and fingers, though there are signs that this work is being taken over by general education, to which it properly belongs, and secondly, at imparting artistic skill and knowledge, and methods of investigation, which are useful in particular occupations, but are seldom properly acquired in the course of practical work. It is, however, to be remembered that every advance in the accuracy and versatility of automatic machinery narrows the range of manual work in which command over hand and eye is at high premium, and that those faculties which are trained by general education in its best forms are ever rising in importance. Footnote. As Naismith says, if a lad, having dropped 2 peas at random on a table, can readily put a third pea midway in a line between them, he is on the way to becoming a good mechanic. Command over eye and hand is gained in the ordinary English games, no less than in the playful work of the kindergarten. Drawing has always been on the borderline between work and play. End of footnote. According to the best English opinions, technical education for the higher ranks of industry should keep the aim of developing the faculties almost as constantly before it as general education does. It should rest on the same basis as a thorough general education, but should go on to work out in detail special branches of knowledge for the benefit of particular trades. Our aim should be to add the scientific training in which the countries of Western Europe are ahead of us, to that daring and restless energy and those practical instincts which seldom flourish unless the best years of youth are spent in the workshop, recollecting always that whatever a youth learns for himself by direct experience in well-conducted works teaches him more and stimulates his mental activity more than if it were taught him by a master in a technical school with model instruments. Footnotes. For training to benefit particular trades. One of the weakest points of technical education is that it does not educate the sense of proportion and the desire for simplicity of detail. The English, and to an even greater extent the Americans, have acquired in actual business the faculty of rejecting intricacies in machinery and processes which are not worth what they cost, and practical instinct of this kind often enables them to succeed in competition with continental rivals who are much better educated. For the benefit of training in a workshop. A good plan is that of spending the 6 winter months of several years after leaving school in learning science in college, and the 6 summer months as articled pupils in large workshops. The present writer introduced this plan about 40 years ago at University College, Bristol, now the University of Bristol. But it has practical difficulties which can be overcome only by the cordial and generous cooperation of the heads of large firms with the college authorities. Another excellent plan is that adopted in the school attached to the works of Messrs. Mather and Platt at Manchester. Quotes, "The drawings made in the school are of work actually in progress in the shops. One day the teacher gives the necessary explanations and calculations, and the next day the scholars see, as it were on the anvil, the very thing which has been the subject of his lecture." End quote. End of footnote. The old apprenticeship system is not exactly suited to modern conditions, and it has fallen into disuse, but a substitute for it is wanted. Within the last few years, many of the ablest manufacturers have begun to set the fashion of making their sons work through every stage in succession of the business they will ultimately have to control. But this splendid education can be had only by a few. So many and various are the branches of any great modern industry, that it would be impossible for the employers to undertake, as they used to do, that every youth committed to their care should learn all, and indeed a lad of ordinary ability would be bewildered by the attempt. But it does not seem impracticable to revive the apprenticeship system in a modified form. Footnote. The employer binds himself to see that the apprentice is thoroughly taught in the workshop all the subdivisions of one great division of his trade, instead of letting him learn only one of these subdivisions, as too often happens now. The apprentice's training would then often be as broad as if he had been taught the whole of the trade as it existed a few generations ago, and it might be supplemented by a theoretical knowledge of all branches of the trade, acquired in a technical school. Something resembling the old apprenticeship system has recently come into vogue for young Englishmen who desire to learn the business of farming under the peculiar conditions of a new country, and there are some signs that the plan may be extended to the business of farming in this country, for which it is in many respects admirably adapted. But there remains a great deal of education suitable to the farmer and to the farm labourer which can best be given in agricultural colleges and dairy schools. Meanwhile, many great agencies for the technical education of adults are being rapidly developed, such as public exhibitions, trade associations and congresses, and trade journals. Each of them has its